In February 2022, the Markets in Crypto Assets legislation proposed a ban of proof-of-work currencies within the European Union, which would include Bitcoin. I took that as a cause to write an open letter to the involved actors. During the process of me writing this letter, the proposal has received a strong backlash and has therefore been scrapped indefinitely. Wait a second right here, it's me with an update from the future, in which I'm also sick. Due to unforeseen reasons, I wasn't able to finish this video earlier. There was a last-minute change in the MiCA proposal and the European Union did actually vote on the ban. 32 voted against it, 24 supported the ban. So for now, it's not gonna happen. I do, however, believe that this is not the last time that we will discuss a potential ban of Bitcoin within the European Union, so I decided to finish the letter anyway. This video is a bit of a summary of the letter, but I urge you to read the full one. I do think that it's the best and most important piece I have written so far. You can find the link in the video description. First things first, I am not a supporter of the German parties that put forward the suggestion of banning proof-of-work currencies. But neither am I a supporter of any other party. I actually try to stay as far away from politics as I possibly can. However, with the knowledge I obtained through the many hundreds of hours of researching Bitcoin, I feel it's unethical to stay silent in regards to this proposal. Without making any allegations, it's hard to tell if you are ill-informed or ill-intentioned, if you feel pressure to make decisions without adequate knowledge of the matter, or if you follow other incentives and just use the politicized climate change cover to hide your true goals. This is an open letter that attends both cases. If you're ill-informed, this letter will at the very least give you the counter-argument to a so far one-sided discussion. If you're ill-intentioned, at the very least the audience of this letter will realize this sooner rather than later, again by the arguments provided and your actions without taking the arguments into consideration. You might not trust me, because Bitcoiners are all far-right drug-dealing gamblers that are environmentally bankrupting the planet as a hobby, according to the media at least. Let me tell you that I'm opposed to all of these things. The good part is you actually don't have to trust me. I'll guide you through what I've learned, but since Bitcoin is open, public and transparent, you can do your own research as we always advise in the community. If you are intellectually honest, which is a hopeful presupposition, you'll come up with very different conclusions than you have arrived at so far. There are two primary reasons for the demand of a Bitcoin ban. First and foremost, Bitcoin's energy consumption and environmental impact, which has been stressed by the parties suggesting the ban. And secondly, Bitcoin is a tool for criminals and option to avoid sanctions in the case of Russia, which is an argument mostly driven by Christine Lagarde and the European Central Bank. The first chapter has already been covered in my last video, so I will only give you a short summary here. If you're interested, and I think you should be interested in learning more, I would advise you to read the full letter, because there I go into much more detail, even more detail than I went in my last video. Bitcoin uses energy that no one else needs. Its carbon footprint is negligible and gets dwarfed by Bitcoin's usefulness as a censorship-resistant, permissionless, neutral, open, counterparty-free money that acts as a store of value and incorruptible settlement and payment network. While it sounds far-fetched, if the incentives provided by Bitcoin mining and green energy get aligned, Bitcoin might even have a positive effect on the environment due to the replacement of gold as a store of value and the economization of renewables, which accelerates the electrification of the European Union. This dynamic has even been acknowledged by the World Economic Forum in 2018. If the European Union cares about the already low Bitcoin CO2 emission, instead of banning Bitcoin, it should mine Bitcoin with green energy. Bitcoin mining is a competitive market. If your source of energy is cheaper, you put others who might not use green energy out of business in the long run. If you join with green energy, you make it harder for everyone else to be economical, including those who don't use green energy. The second chapter is about Bitcoin as a tool for criminals and humanitarians. In its early days, Bitcoin made headlines as the perfect money for drug dealers and money launderers. Like with many breakthrough technologies, the bad or destructive use cases often arrive before the good ones. The internet started with drug dealers and pornographers, the atomic bomb was ready before nuclear power plants, etc. It seems like Christine Lagarde, the governor of the European Central Bank, is still stuck in 2013, blaming Bitcoin for conducting funny business and connecting it to money laundering activities. However, in 2021, transactions involving illicit addresses were at an all-time low at just 0.15% of all Bitcoin transactions, according to Chainalysis. This makes sense. If you're money laundering or pursuing other criminal actions, it's not the best idea to place your transactions on a public and transparent record that saves your undertaking forever, the Bitcoin blockchain. It is possible to somewhat hide your traces with various privacy-enhancing technologies, but it's much harder than with cash. Maybe the 0.15% number still sounds high to you. What is the comparable number for the global reserve currency, the US dollar? The estimated amount of money laundered globally in 1 year is 2 to 5% of global GDP, or $800 billion to $2 trillion in current US dollars. Bitcoin is used for less illicit activities than the US dollar in absolute and relative terms. Legal use of Bitcoin outpaces illegal use of Bitcoin, and it's not even close. What's more is that making Bitcoin illegal has the opposite effect of what you actually want to achieve. You won't be able to ban bad actors from sending and receiving cryptocurrencies, because A, at the human level, bad actors won't comply with the law, and B, at the technical level, a ban would mean banning the internet and destroying all hard drives. Instead, what a ban would do is shut down all legal crypto exchanges and push crypto into the underground, expanding the space for bad actors to operate rather than contracting it. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the European Union and US reacted by imposing sanctions on Russia, including a deplatforming from the SWIFT system. Out of this sprung a story that Russia can and will use Bitcoin to bypass these sanctions. This is largely unfounded. Russia's access to a global payment network has nothing to do with the goal of primary sanctions, cutting off Russia from the US economy. It's illegal for US persons to transact with SDNs, period. It doesn't matter if they use dollars, gold, seashells, or Bitcoin. It's not technically feasible to prevent someone from the EU to send funds to a Bitcoin address in Russia. Bitcoin or crypto in general can theoretically act as an alternative global settlement, but that doesn't change the fact that there is nobody in the West who deals with Russia in the first place, since that's illegal. If Russia wants an alternative, they are far more likely to use China's CIPS than a public network they can't control. A dictator is not interested in using a public, transparent ledger like Bitcoin. Instead, the Chinese yuan and gold become part of the plan. Bitcoin does, however, play a role here, not for Putin, but for the people of Ukraine and for the people of Russia. It's important to understand that current sanctions are targeted, not comprehensive. The goal is not to injure ordinary Russian citizens. We are very happy to see them dump their rubles for non-Russian digital assets. There's enough liquidity for these citizens, but not for oligarchs. Times like these really illustrate why Bitcoin is one of the greatest humanitarian tools ever invented. With banks shutting down, ATMs failing, and the ruble collapsing, Bitcoin is wealth protection even in times of war. Its digital nature allows refugees to flee their country with just 12 words in their head to access their Bitcoin on the other side. It is no surprise that the Human Rights Foundation and their chief strategy officer Alex Gladstein are extremely strong advocates of Bitcoin. There are countless of other examples that illustrate why Bitcoin is such a strong humanitarian tool. More on that in the letter. To conclude this section, a Bitcoin ban turns Bitcoin into an underground market and expands the space for bad actors, increasing the relative amount of illicit activities while suppressing the humanitarian possibilities. Bitcoin is like a knife to a surgeon or a knife to a criminal. Like any valuable technology throughout time, its value comes from the intention behind its use. Chapter 3 is about the European Union, a coming decline or ascent. Jay Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, recently stated that it is possible to have more than one reserve currency. It's very unlikely that he had Bitcoin in mind when making the comment, but he should. In 2021, El Salvador became the first nation-state that made Bitcoin legal tender, and it won't be the last one. This is of utter importance, because you always have to transact internationally for imports and exports. Every nation not named America or China has the following preference ranking when it comes to the financial system. Our country should be in charge, domestic national digital currency. No one should be in charge, international cryptocurrency. Others should be in charge, like the US or China, dollar or digital yuan. A global, decentralized, and most importantly neutral form of money is a good idea for almost any country on Earth. Bitcoin will become the native currency of the internet and the ever-growing remote economy. People still get laughed out of the room for statements like these, but there is no denying that Bitcoin expanded from absolutely zero to a $1 trillion industry within just 12 years, and there is no end in sight. Bitcoin's growth is inevitable and is outpacing the adoption of the internet. Embrace it or get left behind. Germany specifically slept on the digitalization, resulting in adverse effects to this day. Don't make the same mistake again. When, and it's intentionally when and not if, Bitcoin hits a price of $200,000, half of the world's billionaires come from crypto. Think about what that means and what your options are. Attract that wealth or keep it out of the European Union with a BTC ban. The latter would create capital flight for those who are heavily invested into Bitcoin as a cherry on top. So what should the European Union do? What is my suggestion? Well, instead of banning Bitcoin, it should become part of the ECB's or nations' balance sheets. On top of that, building Bitcoin mining infrastructure for energy grid management should be supported, not scrutinized. I don't expect the European Union to do a 180-degree turn and start buying and mining Bitcoin, because these actions are drastically different than the status quo of the discussion. However, if that's not part of the strategy, at least get out of the way, for the sake of your people who will benefit from Bitcoin. You cannot ban Bitcoin, you can only ban yourself from the Bitcoin network. This is the inescapable truth of the discussion. Your best case outcome of banning Bitcoin is that there is no effect. Your worst case outcome is equivalent to blundering the queen on the geopolitical game theoretical chessboard. Thank you for watching, and please read the full letter for more context.